By the time the first colonists came to America, the Reformation had swept across Europe, and most Englishmen assented to a Protestant Reformed theology. But there was strong disagreement on what a national English church should look like. Wars were fought and churches destroyed over whether the Church of England should maintain allegiance with the Roman Catholic Church or whether it should develop a fully Protestant tradition. Of particular debate were the externals of worship and the role of the laity in church governments. The question at hand was whether the Reformation had gone far enough in England. Those who supported governance by bishops, the Episcopal party, said yes, it had. Members of a second church party, the Puritans, said no. They hoped to purify Anglican worship by eliminating Roman Catholic elements, such as liturgical vestments. They also believed that the laity needed a stronger voice in the church. Most Puritans came to favor parliamentary church authority over the authority of the king. They also preferred forms of church governance in which primary authority was exercised by regional gatherings of laity and clergy or congregational meetings. These significant debates in Mother England would eventually have severe repercussions in colonial America. In 1630, whole communities of the Church of England, many Puritan, took advantage of a generous royal charter and moved to New England. Others later followed as the new colonies became sanctuaries for those desiring religious freedom. Economically, the colonies also became an important source of tax revenue for England. One monarch after another levied taxes on the colonists to support their wars. When the burden of English taxes and interference in colonial trade became too great, a shot was heard round the world and the Revolutionary War began. By the start of the Revolution, the roots of the Church of England were deeply embedded in the colonies. But if there was no longer to be an English government in the colonies, the English church could no longer exist there either. Many signers of the Declaration of Independence and framers of the Constitution were Anglicans. As active churchmen, they set about not only creating a new national government, but a new church government as well. Those who settled in the American colonies included priests from the Church of England. The rubrics of the English Book of Common Prayer directed that all priests and deacons say morning and evening prayer each day. But those offices and the Sunday liturgy all contained a collect for the English monarch with the petition, quote, "Strengthen our most gracious sovereign Lord King George, that he may vanquish and overcome all enemies," end quote. In addition, at the time of ordination, all clergy made a public promise before God and the church to obey the king. Post-Revolution clergy who'd been ordained in England were faced with denying their own ordination vows by not supporting the king. Some chose to return to England, others fled to Canada, and others relied on the creation of a new church to reframe their ministry and vows. Highly problematic, however, was the fact that no Church of England bishop lived in the fledgling nation. Severing ties with the Church of England meant no access to bishops. Bishops serve at confirmations, but they are theologically required to ordain new deacons and priests in order to maintain apostolic succession. To continue a church with all three clergy orders, the new Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States of America sent the Reverend Samuel Seabury back to Scotland, where sympathetic bishops consecrated him the first bishop in the United States of America. In addition to all of this, a new prayer book needed to be written to remove references to the English monarchy. The new prayer book, approved in 1784, was not only a statement of post-revolutionary theology, it reflected a church that was not dependent on nationalism for its existence. Finances, too, were a major concern for the new Episcopal Church. Prior to the Revolution, sympathetic monarchs often created policies favorable to the Anglican Church in the colonies. Many colonial churches came to depend on those funds, as well as other funds coming directly from England. Suddenly, with the Revolution, financial support for the clergy and parishes was gone. Sadly, some colonial churches had silver and other precious liturgical items seized. Others simply could not afford to exist at all. Those Anglicans who fought the good fight to free these lands gave the wider Anglican communion a particular gift. They created a church government in which lay persons have voice and authority. Just as the United States government is a bicameral legislature with the House of Representatives and Senate, so the new Episcopal Church would be as well. Episcopal, because the new church retained governance by bishops and held to apostolic succession with our mother church in England, yet governed also by elected representatives from the laity and priesthood. Each parish sends delegates to a diocesan convention annually. Each diocese, in turn, then sends deputies elected to the General Convention of the Episcopal Church. Every 3 years, the bicameral House of Bishops and House of Deputies meet to discern the future of the church and pass legislation. Those who came to the colonies wanted to be free from intolerance, religious oppression, tyrannical hierarchy, and war. They created governance by the people, for the people, all people, lay and ordained. They were also responsible for creating the vestry as we know it. In the United States of America, vestries began selecting their own rectors, eliminating the system of bishop appointment. The Episcopal Church we know today has maintained common worship and prayer as the core of its identity and transformative power. The beauty of the liturgy is a hallmark of our communal faith. With Scripture as its backbone, the beautiful language and pastoral sensitivity of our Book of Common Prayer unites us as a people and provides us with a spiritual rhythm for our lives. Eucharistically centered and based in our baptismal covenant, worship creates, sustains, and empowers our corporate life and our individual ministries. The College for Congregational Development developed a model that shows how parish transformation happens in our lives. If you would take your bulletin and open it to page 5, you will see this model entitled Sources of Transformation. At the center of the transformative power of our congregation is worship and prayer. Other areas of parish life that transform us are life in community, study and learning, and action. Each of these can be examined further to see the critical functions in those areas. Notice that food and conversation, as well as silence and listening, develop our community life. Studying and learning is not just about the mind, but also the heart, and how we integrate learning into our practice. Action includes evangelism and stewardship, as well as our service to others. As we celebrate our independence as a nation, I am inviting you to consider our interdependence as an Episcopal community. In particular, in the week ahead, consider for yourself which of these sources of transformation you are already particularly engaged in, and then celebrate. Then take some time and think about which are not strong areas for you, and consider how you might strengthen those areas in order to ask God more fully into your life. Perhaps it's personal prayer, or stewardship, or taking time for conversation with new friends at St. John's, or reading scripture. Those revolutionaries who fought for freedom and built a new Anglican church, the Episcopal Church, left us with an incredible gift. Our worship and congregational life equip us with all that we need to weather the vast and varied changes of life. But more than that, like those who have gone before, once transformed, we are sent out to our work, our schools, our gyms, our soccer leagues. We're sent out to the sick, the homebound, the addicted and mentally ill. We are sent out to do the work that God has given us to do as beacons of hope to those on the dark margins of society. Perhaps, just perhaps, we can also be revolutionaries, brave enough to forego comfort in favor of justice, and clear enough to embrace the true freedom that comes from walking the way of Jesus Christ.